Good evening, everybody. How you guys doing today? Okay, so tonight we're dealing with the second session on the new me in 100 days. And tonight's session, I have themed it the failure code. Wow, the failure code. That is an interesting one. Starting with the failure code, what I want to do is to take us on a journey on how we became who we are. And that is exactly what I'm going to be talking about tonight. Make sure you subscribe so you can comment. And tonight I'll try and see if you can make it as interactive as possible. But I've got quite a bit that I need to pour down. And I'm hoping that tonight's session is going to relieve somebody today. Tonight's session is going to be an answer to someone's question on the journey to discovering where you're coming from and moving to the person that you need to be so that you can be the best version of yourself as you unbundle the journey ahead. I asked the question if you are an optimist, a pessimist, or a realist. And I made it clear that the reason behind whichever way you swing is your experience. What has your experience got to do with this? It has to do with the events that have played out in your life in the past. That is what makes up for the viewpoints that you eventually frame up as a perspective in life, whether you look at things from an optimistic, pessimistic, or realistic point of view. Now, let me also paint a different scenario using a motor vehicle. For those of us that maybe you drive or you have a motor vehicle, have you ever wondered why does your car need a wheel balancing or alignment, as the case may be? The reason is also very simple. If you fit tires into your car and you don't balance the wheel properly or you don't align it properly, there is a tendency that the tires might be rubbing on itself and it might not be in the very best position to move the way it ought to. And when it is not well balanced, the movement will begin to impact on the body of the tire. So rather than the body, the part of the tire that is supposed to be touching the floor to be wearing out, you find yourself in a situation whereby the sides of the tire is now rubbing off on the wheel of the tire. And that is why you conduct a wheel balancing and alignment service on the car. Now, how does this apply to our lives? If you don't conduct a proper check on the things that you do or on your habits, oftentimes you find yourself in a situation where you are the one hurting yourself, even by the things that you do without knowing. You find yourself in a situation whereby you're just going through life, and the things that you're doing, the decision you're making, the actions you're making them in the best interest. In the best interest, you're taking the actions in the best interest, but you find out that somehow, some way, you keep making decisions that are hurting you. You keep taking actions that are impacting on you negatively, and you keep asking yourself why. That is exactly what we're dealing with tonight. We're dealing with the subject, the failure code, because there's a possibility that the enemy could actually be the inner me. Maybe someone wants to type down. The enemy could actually be the inner me. And without in mind, let's paint a picture of a new gadget. Let's say a phone, a brand new phone. If I ask you what is the best condition that you should find a phone, is it in factory settings when you restore it to factory settings, or is it when it is fully installed with whatever apps? For instance, if someone wants to give you a phone, would you rather have the phone delivered to you in factory settings, or would you rather have the phone delivered to you with apps and other uh, photos that you don't know about, software that you didn't install, and content that do not resonate with you, whatever it is that does not belong to you? Would you rather have the phone in that order, or would you rather have it in factory settings? Now, many people will say they would rather have it in factory settings so that they can start the journey by themselves, knowing that whatever it is that they do on that phone is a reflection of their lifestyle, right? Well, to an extent, it could be right, but let me point out a deception in factory settings. There could actually be a deception in factory settings, and that leads me to talk about the human framework. Yeah, let's start with the human framework. You are not wired to succeed. Now, that is coming to most of us as a shock, right? If I put it to you that scientifically, you are not wired to succeed. And I'm going to prove it to you shortly. The brain has been designed to help you survive, not succeed. You want to write that down somewhere, and I'll prove it in a bit. Your brain is designed to help you survive, not to help you succeed. Okay? Because when you look at yourself, your entity, while you are still in the womb, from the third trimester of your life to the first 7 years of your life, what are you doing? You are actually building what you call consciousness. And during this period of your life, from the third trimester, when all your ears, your eyes, your nose, your mouth, and your skin, everything is almost, fully formed, and you're just about to be born, you're getting fully developed, ready to come out of your mom's matrix. At that point, you are already conscious. Even if you're still in the womb, you are conscious. Now, here's the thing that is going on: you are observing, you are learning, and you are downloading. At that point, what you're just doing is you are like a phone that is coming out in factory settings, brand new, no app on it, everything is clean. So, what you're doing is you are observing your environment, whether it is the internal environment of your or of your mother's womb, or when you eventually come into this world. For the first 7 years of your life, you are observing your immediate environment. You are learning to trust your eyes. You are learning to trust your ears. You are learning to trust your nose. You are learning to trust your mouth. You are learning to trust your skin. You are learning the five physical senses that you have and using it to observe your immediate environment. Not only that, you are learning new things, you are learning sounds, you are learning languages, you are learning ideologies, you are learning things by what you see, you are learning day, you are learning night, you are learning food that is good, food that is not good, you are learning water, you are learning fluids, you are learning all kinds of things. And all of this come to you as inputs because they are being stored somewhere on your mind. Another thing you're doing that you are downloading them. As you're learning these things, as you're observing these things, you are learning them. And all of this is happening from the third trimester of your life to the seventh year of your life. Now, let's go back a bit to the fourth year of your life. From the fourth year of your life to the 13th year of your life, you are now engaging the environment even in a different way. Now, how are you engaging the environment? Through repetition, through practice, and through habits. Because when you started out life, you couldn't exercise your mouth to speak. The only thing you could do with your mouth was to feed. So you were actually receiving data passively, either the information you're getting from the environment. But by the time you begin to learn how to speak, by the time you begin to learn how to recognize colors, learn how to recognize shapes and all that, what you now begin to do is to repeat the things that you've learned. And that is when you go through school, elementary school, basic school, and all that. You begin to learn by repetition. That is where you get memories, nursery. When you begin to memorize things, you learn nursery rhymes, you learn times table, and everything is always by repetition. You come to school today, you learn the same thing, you memorize it, you repeat it, and you come to school tomorrow, you do the same thing again and again, again and again, again and again, and the cycle continues till you begin your teenage years. That is where you begin to gather enough data. And the mind is an infinite drive. Picture a hard drive that has a limitless capacity. As you are learning these things, you are storing them somewhere. Now, all of this that you are learning in the course of your life is what makes up your nature, your nurture, and your neighborhood. If you remember last week, I talked about the fact that your total framework is a combination of your nature, your nurture, and your neighborhood. Now, your nature, it is what you already inherited, even from your parents, your genetic code, your framework, who you are. Your nurture is the is the upbringing that you're exposed to, the way and manner with which you are raised. Don't forget, even before you came into this world, you started observing, maybe using your sense of hearing. You're hearing things that are happening out there, and you're getting to understand what the world is like. And depending on what side of the world that they give birth to you in, whether on the west side, the central side, on the eastern side of the world, you learn, you observe, you download, you repeat over and again, and you begin to practice it, and it becomes a habit. Now, fast forward, you are in your 30s, you are in your 40s, you are in your 50s, whichever way you swing. You now realize that all that you've spent a lifetime learning, all that you've spent a lifetime coding, they were actually being saved in your memory automatically. And this is where the problem is. You don't have control to click on save whenever you learn something or whenever you get a new data into your system. You don't get to save or to decide whether you want to save or delete. It just saves automatically. And when it saves, it finds a folder in the compartment of your mind and it stores there. Now, all these things that you get through your nature, your nurture, your neighborhood, by learning and by observation and all that, has now culminated into what we have called the code. Now, for some people, they refer to it as programming. That is who you are and how you see life and how you behave. That is why I asked the question whether you're a pessimist or whether you are an optimist or whether you are a realist. All of this is a totality of your experience, because you don't just become a pessimist out of the blues without a reference point to the data that has been stored on your mind. You don't become an optimist without a reference point to the data that's been stored on your mind. And you don't even become a realist either. Everything is a product of data that has been stored on your mind to date. Now, the fact of the matter is, most of this data, because they come in uncensored and because they come in such a way that you don't have the control to save, they actually auto save on your mind, good, bad, ugly. They come in uncensored. And that's why we are trying to exploit today, because by default setting, they come in with lots and lots of negative vibes. You will say, but Coach Dapo, why are they all negative? The truth of the matter is, negativity has been the default setting of our lives even before we were born. Now, depending on whichever theory of evolution that you subscribe to, you would realize that at some point there has always been an element of negativity, because whatever it is that you've learned, whatever it is that you've observed, is a result of what has been fed to you by the environment that you met. And to a large extent, a good chunk of it is negative. And that is why today I have termed it the failure code. Now, let me run you through some examples of what I've called the failure code. For instance, if I ask you money ritual, what does money ritual mean to you? Now, depending on the environment where you were raised, depending on what you have learned in the course of your life, observed, you might almost have a negative definition for the word money ritual. I don't know what is happening with the chat box today because I'm not seeing chats. Maybe people are unable to type in their chats, but for whatever it is, I need to be sure that you are listening to me and you are engaging quite well. Money ritual by default has a positive connotation and a negative connotation. But based on where you are coming from, your learning, your observation, your experience, you oftentimes have a negative coloration of the word money ritual, because you, to a large extent, many people might have been exposed to the fact that you need to do something really, really terrible, like killing somebody, and by killing somebody in a mysterious way that you cannot explain, you get rich. And the ritual. Meanwhile, if you ask someone else that had a complete different upbringing, a complete different nature, nurture, and neighborhood, where he sees money ritual as the things that you do on a daily basis to make, manage, and multiply money, the definition of money ritual to that person is completely different. I hope someone is catching what I'm dropping tonight. That your coloration in life affects the definition that you attribute to things. Maybe someone wants to write that down in his journal. That your coloration in life, the code that you have auto saved on your mind, has a way of affecting the definition that you place on things. Money ritual is one of them. Let me move on because of time onto other failure codes that we have. We have what we call opportunity comes but once. Have you heard of that before? Opportunity comes but once. You hear it so often and again that it seems so true. It seems so real. It seems so believable. It seems so, oh, yeah, that's true. Because the last time I got an opportunity was a long time ago. So I have reasons to believe that opportunity comes but once. Another one says, hard work pays. Another one says, worst case scenario. Let's look at the worst case scenario. Why don't you ask yourself, let's look at the best case scenario? Maybe someone has thought about that for a minute. You realize that you've grown to accept, that you've grown to believe in the course of your journey in life, are actually things that if you begin to give them a second look, maybe they've been honestly wrong. Experience is the best teacher. That is another example. Getting rich quick is a scam. For instance, if I say getting rich quick is a scam, many people will almost agree. If I run a poll and I say getting rich quick is a scam, true or false, The percentage of people that will click true or the percentage of people that will click false will be really, really far apart. You've heard of codes like my hard earned money. That's another example. We say things like my hard earned money. Is there any money that people don't call hard earned money? That you say my easy earned money. I've not heard anyone that is yet to say easy earned money. You say hard earned money and it sounds really pretty in the ears, and you get so used to it and you're like, oh yeah, every money that comes into my pocket must be a hard earned money. But is that true? Let's go on. Another one is I'm not good enough. Oftentimes, some people, their issue is imposter syndrome. The experiences they've had in the course of their journey, the things that they've learned, the things that they've observed, the amount of times that they have been denied opportunities to shine has given them reasons to believe that maybe the problem is with them, that maybe the problem is from them. Maybe it's their fault. Maybe they are not good enough. Maybe they will never be pretty enough. Maybe they will never be brilliant enough. Maybe they will never be smart enough and all that. And for that reason, some people have just come to a conclusion or jumped into a conclusion that the problem is with them. Another code, let's talk about another code that says live within your means. Who has heard of that before? In fact, it is so popular that it sounds so true, or it sounds so believable, or it sounds so advisable that, hey, why would you want to fault that? Ideally, you should live within your means. But what if someone comes with an idea and say, increase your means? Does that not make a better sense? Why are we talking about failure code tonight? Because this is the foundation onto unveiling the new me in 100 days. Before you unveil the new me in 100 days, you need to open your eyes and see what is wrong with the present me. Most of the things that you've believed in all your life, they need to be reviewed. They need to be reprocessed. They need to be rethought. They need to be reprogrammed. Some people, the code that they live by is what will people say? What will people say? I want to make a decision. I want to wear something. What will people say? You don't, yeah, you can't wear that, or you can't wear that. What will people say? You can't take that course, so what will people say? You can't go to that school, or what will people say? You can't go to that church. What will people say? You can't go to that mosque. What will people say? You can't hang out with that person. What will people say? Many people have lived their life in the prison of other people's opinion. That could be someone else's failure code. I don't know if you find any of the code that resonates with you, just pick up your side notes and begin to take note of them. Another one says, give me the bad news first. Oftentimes, when you hear someone comes to you to say, you know what, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Which one do you want to hear first? Oftentimes, people want to hear the bad news first. Why? You see the reasons why I'm saying that to a large extent, the coding that has formed our lives are actually negative coding. That's why I call it the failure code. Why don't you say, give me the good news first, and I'm not interested in the bad news? You have a choice. You have a choice. Another one is, I can't keep myself. You try something, you just give it a little effort because you didn't get the result at the first attempt. You just assumed that, okay, I can't keep myself. I can only do what I can do, and so be it. Another one is I'm shy. Some people have adopted shyness as their property. Meanwhile, being shy is actually a choice. Being shy is not a trait. Being shy is not a genetic code. Being shy is actually a choice. And it is a product of experience. the things you've learned, the things you've observed, the things you've downloaded between your third trimester in life and across the years, maybe to your first 7 years in life, the kind of experiences that you've been exposed to help you to conclude on the kind of personality that you want to adopt in your life. And finally, because of time, let me just touch on one more. Another one says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The typewriter was not broke, but someone said typewriter is not enough. Horses and carriage was not broke, but someone said horses and carriage is not enough. The bicycle was not broke, but someone said the bicycle is not enough. So where did you come to conclude that if it ain't broke, don't try to fix it? So you see that the more you begin to take the code that has been the framework of your life and you begin to turn them on its head and begin to find the way out, because most of this code have ended up becoming a prison that has incarcerated us over a lifetime. So the earlier you begin to find yourself to get out of that prison of the code that has clamped you for so long, you begin to find the possibilities in life. Many of us, for instance, I just give a test in the last session when we talked about how hard is your why. And I asked you to go on an exercise of 7 levels deep. To a large extent, many of us are struggling. And I understand. This is the reason why we're struggling. The code that has imprisoned us all our lives. So, as we begin to find ways to get out of the code that has been the guiding framework for our lives, we begin to see what we weren't seeing before. It is my job to take you from the present you into the new version of yourself in 100 days. And this is the beginning of that journey. Let's talk about abundance and scarcity for a bit. Because the larger demographic that we're dealing with today is Africans. Let's start with Africa. Let me tell you about the Africa that you didn't know, or the Africa that you didn't focus on. Africa is an abundant continent. Many agree, many find a way, struggle to agree. But Africa indeed is and has always been a wealthy continent. If you take a look at the movies that are being projected in today's age in Hollywood, they are coming to admit the fact that Africa indeed has been a wealthy continent. But guess what? We have spent our lives, or we had, because I'm talking about history now, spent our lives living in wealth, living in abundance, living in squalor, that we didn't have any reason to work any day in our lives. That was the Africa at its origin. Under our feet was so much minerals. Around us, so much vegetation. Everywhere you set foot on, the land is arable. There was wealth all over the place. Now, at some point in the journey, some people came and said, you know what? Let's sell scarcity to these guys. Let's show them what they are missing. Now, the person that has been used to trees, endless number of trees, gets to see a piece of furniture for the first time, and in a split second, forgets the endless number of trees and focuses on the furniture that it doesn't have. That is when scarcity started. Scarcity as a narrative in exchange for the abundance that we've been sitting on all our lives. They sold us plastics and they took away the palm oil. They sold us furniture and they took away all the logs of wood, timber, and all that. They sold us all kinds of processed foods and they took away all the raw materials and the natural organic food that we had in our lives. Now, what am I saying with all of this? Scarcity had never been the narrative in Africa from the very beginning. But generations upon generations, slave trade, and the aftermath of slave trade, we now found ourselves in a situation where our default setting has now transitioned from abundance to scarcity. That is a failure code. Now we find ourselves in a situation where we could barely afford to live a decent lifestyle because we feel that what we need to afford a decent lifestyle is not within reach. That is a scarcity mindset. And we're going to be dealing with lots of all of this in future sessions. But I'm just trying to lay the foundation as to how did we get here in the very beginning. We got here through the things that we observed. We got here through the things that we learned. We got here through the things that we downloaded, the things that we repeated, the things that we practiced, and the things that we adopted into becoming a habit in our lives. That is how we got here. That, my friends, is the failure code. Now, fast forward, we are in 2023, and we are now groping within our minds in a situation where just to earn a living, to get petroleum, to get things that actually belong to us, to get things that are actually within our reach, they now become things that are out of our reach. The questions that should bother you, the question that should bother me is, how did we get here? How did we get here? The failure code. If only we can go back and retrace the code, the programming that we auto saved in our minds, the things that we fed into our subconsciousness, which I'm going to be treating in subsequent sessions, we would realize that somewhere along the line, it is what we have believed that has now affected the way we behave. So our behavior is a function of our beliefs. Our beliefs is a function of our thoughts. I'll repeat that. Our behavior is a function of our beliefs, and our beliefs is a function of our thoughts. Now, our thoughts is a function of our code, the code that has been entrenched in us in the course of our lifetime. Now, find ourselves in a situation where some of us have been able to snatch ourselves from a bit of material scarcity, but we are still dealing with lots of mental scarcity. And that is why we have put this program together. And like I said, this is going to be a very safe space. This is not the place where anybody is going to be flaunting his ego in any way. We are here to fix ourselves. If you don't need fixing, you don't need to be here. This room is for those who are willing to admit that, hey, I need fixing. I need to move forward. I need to be the best version of myself. I am sick and I am tired of being broke. I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of being scarce, of being in lack. By the time you run through the 7 areas of your life, physically, there is something that you want more. Spiritually, to connect with your inner self, there is something that you want more. Financially, there is something that you want more. Emotionally, there's something that you want more. Mentally, there's something that you want more. Socially, there's something that you want more. Environmentally, there's something that you want more. If you look through the areas of your life, you realize that your failure code has negatively impacted the outcomes that you have today. And this is the beginning of solutions. The day you realize that you have a problem is the day you realize that a solution is near. And that is why we are heading in the right direction going forward. Now, the homie may have left the ghetto, but to a large extent, the ghetto is still in the homie. Now, what do I mean by this? It doesn't matter where you stay, whether you stay in the suburbs, you stay in the city, or you stay in the first world country, or wherever it is that you stay. The truth of the matter is there is a difference between your material value and your mental value. For some of us, you might be privileged to have some material value. But the question is, how much is your mental value? How much is your mindset? For some, it's 10% of what you have so that you can gain 100% in return. For many of us, we will struggle around it because of the programming, because of the failure code that we have. And while we're at it, let me drop in one more failure code. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. That is a failure code. The reason why many of us have the inertia when we want to launch into projects, when we want to invest into courses, when we want to do stuff, there is always something that holds us back, especially when you hear the price of the cost, or the cost of the investment, or the cost of the project. You say, you know what? A bird in hand is what two in the bush. Let me deal with what I have. That is scarcity. There are some codes that you need to flush out of your drive so that you can begin to install new codes. And that is what we're going to be dealing with in the course of this session. Now, let's talk about the power of proximity for a bit. Proximity, like I shared yesterday, is very, very powerful because it references that influence the code or the coding that you auto save. I mentioned yesterday in the group that if you hang around the barber shop long enough, you'll get a haircut. If you hang around the gym long enough, you'll get a workout. If you hang around the restaurant long enough, you will get a meal. A millionaire. If you hang around jokers long enough, you become a joker. If you hang around complainers long enough, you become a complainer. It is that simple. There is power in proximity because right from the moment you were born, your senses have been trained in the course of your life. whether you are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, it doesn't matter how old you are. You have been trained to observe and learn and take references from people around you. The question is, who are the people around you? Take a quick census of the people around you, the people that you spend your morning till night with, whether it's office, whether it's wherever it is, at home, wherever you gather. Where do you rub minds? And take a census of the kind of conversations that you have. How much of it is empowering you every now and then? That is very important. How many times have you taken advantage of an opportunity to invest in a circle, to join a, a circle or a community, a tribe of people that make your life better? How many times, and this is another way you know the kind of code that is running on your mind, do you evaluate how much it costs versus how much it pays? If you want to come out of poverty of the mind, poverty of materials, poverty of relationships, poverty of your physical ability, poverty of your environmental ability, poverty of your emotions, and all that, you need to take the leap. It won't come cheap, but you need to first know that there is a problem. Because the worst problem is ignorance of a problem. Whenever you live in denial of a problem, that is when you suffer the greatest problem. So, tonight, my friends, I want us to focus. I've only tried to touch on a few failure codes. And I'm hoping that all of this that I've mentioned tonight will be able to trigger, because I'm speaking to potential hundreds of people that will be watching in delayed broadcasts. I don't know which of the failure code that any of the things that I've said tonight might have triggered in your life. I want you to go back into your journal after this session is over and begin to do a thorough investigation and ask yourself, how did I get here? What is indeed my nature? What is my nurture? And what is my neighborhood? Because it matters a great deal. There is something we call territorial culture. Let me touch on territorial culture a bit, and it is everywhere. Africa as a continent has its culture. Nigeria as a country has its culture. Lagos as a state has its culture. Lagos West, Lagos East, Lagos Central, the three areas, the three key zones, their culture. Even in Lagos Central alone, if we take Lagos Central alone, if you go north central, that is going towards Agege and the likes, the culture is different from south central. If you are coming down to Ere, take the map and exploit it. You find out that the more you drive around town, the more you realize that the culture is different. The police in Agege is different from the police in Lekki. These are territorial culture. And all of these are a combination of nature, and nurture, and neighborhood. They are all a combination of the code that we have all been. Go to the western side of the world. Even in the United States, you've got 50 states, 51 states. In every state, the culture is different. There are some states that are upbeat, and there are some states that are laid back. That is life. Where are you exposed to? What are you observing? What are you learning? What are you downloading? These are very important issues because they are what will eventually inform the way you perceive life, whether you are a pessimist, optimist, or a realist. And I'm not saying either is right or wrong, but the question is, what is the quality of results that you're getting in your life? Because the quality of result that you're getting in your life is a function of the quality of inputs that you're putting in your life. Now, let's talk about looking back and looking forward. We've done so much of looking back for the past, let's say, almost 1 hour now. But let's talk about looking forward for a bit because we're going to have another session next week, which is going to focus more on looking forward. Before you can look forward, how do you review where you're coming from? I kept reiterating the fact that I am so convinced that I am instructed that even if it is just even if it is just one person that this program was set up for, I have been instructed that I shouldn't charge a penny for organizing the program. But nonetheless, this thing will cost you, especially when we get into the accountability bits. If you really want to be serious, if you want to be the best version of yourself, it is very easy to start. The easiest thing to do is to start. But by the time you get middle of the ocean, how far can you go? Are you the type that you will get to day 50 and get discouraged? Will you make it to day 80? Will you make it to day 90? Will you make it to day 99 and say, oh, I've done 99 days and I've not seen any sign? What will day 100, what difference will day 100 make? The answer is in the foundation that you lay today as you look forward. Now, let's talk about identity crisis as we begin to round off. You've learned about the things you've observed in the course of your life, the things you've learned, the things you've downloaded, and all that, and how it has all added to who you are, the way you view life, your belief systems, your behavior, your habits, and all that. And you're asking yourself, so how do I define my identity? How would I rate myself? Some of us, a huge number of us, we suffer identity crisis. We don't even know who we are. We don't know our own strength. And that is the truth. I don't know my own strength either. Oftentimes, you set out on a journey, and by the time you stretch yourself to eventually get to the other end, and you look back and you realize that, am I the one that did this? Even you yourself, you're proud, and you're like, if they told me that I'm going to do this, I would say no, I can't believe it. And that's why I'm asking you to set the goals that you cannot achieve today. They have to be the goals that the 100-day version of you can achieve. And when I say 100 days, it starts out as a challenge on a literal level. But at the end of the day, it is going to become a metaphor for the future version of yourself. You need to begin to define your identity. You need to begin to define who do you want to be in the next version of your life. Which leads me to profiling a solution. Now that you know that the issue is the failure code, how do we deal with this failure code? Because you didn't save these files yourself. Remember, I mentioned that these files were auto saved because you came into this world like a brand new phone, factory settings. But the thing about factory settings is even if you buy a brand new phone now and it's in factory settings, it is not in the best version of itself. Because by the time you turned it on, it will ask you to update that maybe by the time this thing was manufactured in factory settings, that was the software that was the newest version at that time. Maybe the phone was manufactured 6 months ago and you now bought it brand new. It doesn't mean that that factory settings is the best settings. The phone will prompt you to get online and update the latest settings. That is the same way we are wired. You came into this world with factory settings and you just assume that your factory settings is going to deliver the best of life for you. That will never happen. You need to upgrade to the new software. That is why you will always be prompted to update to the latest version of the software that you have. Now, how do you update your new software? You need to first uninstall the bad code, uninstall the failure code. You've spent a lifestyle installing a code that has not served you. The only way to move forward is to uninstall the code. This is where I'll be wrapping up this evening. That as you go to bed tonight, begin to ask yourself, how am I going to uninstall this code? Now, some of the code that we have adopted has resulted in loss of passion. For many of us, we have tried. Honestly, we have tried and we've suffered failure time and again so much that we have now come to conclude that there is no point trying. Loss of passion. For some of us, it is trauma. Something happened when you were young, and that memory would just never leave you alone. And it was a nasty experience. These are codes that we need to uninstall. For some of us, it is disappointments. You grew up getting used to disappointments that people have disappointed you so badly that it is difficult to find yourself in a situation whereby you create expectations and the expectations are met. It's as if it's clockwork that anytime you set expectations, those expectations are always dashed. It's a code. For some of us, it is failures. Everything you just put your hands on, it never works. Some people they tell you that is there anything that I've not tried in this world? I've tried soap making, I've tried catering, I've tried fashion, I've tried this, I've gone to school, I studied chemistry, I've done accounting, I have like 3 different degrees in 3 different fields, I've done this, everything. It's always by the time I'm about to finish like this, something just goes wrong. And we have now come to conclude that there is a diabolical reason. No, no diabolical reason. It is just a failure code. For some of us, it is abuse. While we were busy learning something innocently, observing something innocently, downloading something innocently, will just never go. It is a failure code. For some of us, it's procrastination. Anytime you want to embark on something, something just reminds that, you know what, this thing is bigger than you right now. Maybe you should stay back and just give it some time so that you can go and pump yourself up. You go back and pump yourself up, you come back to it, the thing becomes bigger again, and it just keeps giving you reason to say, you know what, I'll do it tomorrow. You know what, I'll do it later. You know what, I'll do it when I'm in the right frame of mind. And the right frame of mind never comes. It is a failure code. There are lots of failure codes out there, but time will not permit for me to go into all the details. But I'm just hoping that the few that I've been able to touch on tonight are able to trigger something in someone's life tonight. Because what we want to do is we don't want to keep these things buried anymore. We want to bring them out and we want to deal with them once and for all. It is time to uninstall the failure code. It is time to uninstall the failure code. Things that have brought us thus far and has not served us, it is about time that we begin to look at all these codes. And most of them even came from the people we love, our parents, our elders, the people that we trusted, the people that we depended on. They were the one that fed us and installed these toxic codes into our lives. Some of us are dealing with so much trauma. It's not every abuse that is rape. It's not every abuse that is domestic violence. Some abuse is just the fact that the person that you trusted to guide you, like your parents, gave you the worst advice of your life and set you on a journey that has created a downward spiral for your life. And you are wishing that you could just get your parent like this and strangle the person. And I hope I'm being real tonight. People are dealing with stuff out there, and you're asking yourself, how did I get here? We need to uninstall the failure code. For some reason, I don't know why we couldn't chat tonight, but I hope for those of you that are online that you can hear me very well. Something has hit you tonight, and you're going back to talk to yourself, as in bring yourself out of yourself and have a meeting, a one-on-one meeting, and begin to write out. And this is where we are wrapping up tonight. I'm leaving you with an assignment. I want you to get a fresh sheet of paper and begin to pour yourself out, because this is on you. You are pouring yourself out and you're writing out all the failure codes that you know have been the prison of your life. It doesn't matter if you're 20. It doesn't matter if you're 30. It doesn't matter if you're 40. It doesn't matter if you're 70. That's too late to uninstall the failure code. Get a sheet of paper and begin to write, what are those things? Is there any one of them that I've heard tonight? Or is there any one of them that reminded me of anything that I know that this is as in, for some of us, it's coming to you now. And for some of you, it might be when you sleep and you wake up overnight, it will just come to you and say, yes, now I understand. This is why I am not moving forward in my life. What is your failure code? When you begin to write them down, then you know you are on a trajectory, on a path towards fixing things. All right. So as we take this forward in subsequent session, we'll now talk about the other side on how to begin to install the right codes. Tonight has been valuable to somebody, even if it's just one person. I hope tonight has made you to reflect on yourself. Like I told you, this is not your regular goal setting program. This is where we get into the heart of the matter. It's not about setting goals. It's about understanding the context behind the goals. That are you even the kind of person that can achieve those goals? That is why the focus of this program is the new you. It's not about the goals. And if you are true to yourself, you realize that that is the exact reason why you couldn't answer why you wanted those goals in the first place. Many of us were getting stuck in level 3. It's because the problem was not about the goals. The problem was all about you all along. What is the goal? You want money. Why do you want money? So that I can get some material stuff. Why do you want material stuff? So that I can be happy. Why do you want to be? By the time you dig into it, why do you want to have? What kind of happiness are you looking for? You begin to realize that there is actually a why beneath the why in your life. I always try to keep this 1 hour, and I hope we'll be able to make it 1 hour. We've already done about 1 hour now. So permit me, guys, let's adjourn for tonight. I want you to go back to the WhatsApp group. Like I said, the WhatsApp group is a safe space for healing. So as you get on the WhatsApp group, the first thing that I want you to type is, let there be light. Let be light. Get on the WhatsApp group and say, let be light. And I want you to share your experience. If you have a failure code that you know that this has been the issue, pour out. Pour out. Because the more you pour out, the more you realize that, okay, these are the issues that you're dealing with. Nothing could be as bad as fighting an enemy you don't know. But I hope this session tonight has been able to expose the enemy, which could actually have been the inner me. Good night, guys.